Okay, so welcome to Moving Forward Talk with Diana. This afternoon we have joining me is Mr. Kurt Harbaugh. And again, the purpose of this platform is to motivate others to become proactive in shaping their future without putting limitation on their capability to do so. So it's a pleasure to have you, Mr. Kurt. And I'm a little bit emotional with this one because I've met Kurt over the years. Back in 2005, he was one of my first probationers. Mr. Kurt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 30 years old now, and when we met, I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten into trouble, of course. That's why I seen you. Now I'm a welder fabricator. I work for a fertilizer company. I do pretty good for myself nowadays. And, I just work hard every day now and of course, stay out of trouble. I don't, I just work hard. That's what I do. I work 6 days a week. I can't really say much about it. I work 6 days a week, 60 plus hours sometimes, try to make ends meet and do better for myself and keep improving my life.
Okay, great. Now, Mr. Kurt, growing up as a child and into your teenage years, what was that like? What was the family dynamic like?
Well, in my beginning of my teenage years, played a lot of sports. I played football mainly. I just played football. Played a lot of football from Pee-wee, from the 5th grade. I started off playing Pee-wee football, Pop Warner, all the way up till middle school. And then into high school, I played JV, junior varsity. And then after junior varsity, I didn't play football anymore for obvious reasons, for the reasons we'll talk about soon. But besides playing football and stuff, I did a lot of BMX riding. Everything was good at home. My brother, I have an older brother. He was there. He always had my back and stuff. My parents were good people. They worked really hard as a teenager. I didn't see them too much because they both had 2 jobs. My mom, she worked at a vet office, and my dad, he was a meat cutter. My mom also did produce at a grocery store, and my dad also ran a lawn care business at the same time. And I ended up started working when I was 15 years old, because kind of funny how it started actually was when I turned 15, or was it 14 years old, we had the Nextels, which a lot of people are going to know who those are. If you show it to your clients now, we used to have these little radios, 2 ways that you beep to each other. And I got it for Christmas, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. I got a cell phone, and the first month went by and it worked. And the second month, it wouldn't work no more. I said, hey, Dad, I was like, my phone's not working. He goes, well, did you pay the bill? I said, no, I don't have a job. He goes, well, you better go get a job. I was like, all right, I guess I'll go get a job. So I rode my bicycle up to the local country club. Wasn't too far from the house. So I rode my bicycle up there and started washing dishes to pay for my cell phone bill. So I started working when I was 15, even 14. I was during the summertime. Dad wasn't letting me sit around the house. He had me paint the house. I worked in the orange groves for a friend and his family business. I always worked. I had fun as a kid too. I used to skateboard, BMX a lot. Growing up with my brother, we were pretty hard on each other as teenagers. I remember last time, or one of the times I visited my parents, they live in South Carolina now. I still live in Florida, but I went and visited them, and they showed me all these stacks of paperwork from middle school, or from elementary school to high school, pretty much, of riding on the bus. fighting on the bus, fighting on the bus, fighting on the bus, fighting at the bus stop, fighting on the bus. Me and my brother were just always just boom, button heads. We're going at it 24/7 with each other. But we always had each other's back and everything, so that was good. Mm-hmm. You know, as a teenager, I did get into a lot of fights. Just a lot of fights. I was rude, obnoxious. I was mean. A lot of people that knew me back then that I talk to now even will tell me, like, man, you've changed. You're a totally different guy. And when, you know, back in school, you were a jerk. Like, you were not a very nice person. And I realized that.
I didn't see that side of you, though.
You didn't see that side of me because I changed then. Okay. After all, when everything happened, that's when it stopped. Right when that happened, after my freshman year in high school, it stopped. It ended. That's where it ended at. It was right then and there. Prior to that, it was just, I was just wide open, just all the time. You didn't see that side of me because it ended when I got arrested. Oh. Everything changed then. Everything. And I had no choice. And I realized, because I had to go through all this therapy and everything after I got arrested, that, you know, what I was doing and how, you know, I was always angry all the time. And I wrote everything down every day, kept a journal and all that. I was like, man, I'm so angry. I don't know why I'm angry, this and that. Had anxiety a lot. You know, even before I was arrested, I had a lot of anxiety. You know, before a football game, for instance, you know, I would always throw up. I would throw up before a football game. Like, mm-hmm. The craziest things. And whenever I was going through the system in my teenage years, I would, right when I would show up to the courtroom, my lawyer I'd see my lawyer, and my mom and dad would be with me, and I would just go right to the bathroom, and I would just start blowing chunks. Like, I would do it it was so bad to where I would have blisters, blood vessels busted underneath my eyeballs. That's how hard, like, I would throw up before court, which you never seen that. Nobody ever really knew that was an issue because I didn't talk about it then. Right. I had really bad anxiety as a kid, and maybe that's why the way I was because I had anxiety, and I just, you know, I dealt with, you know, violence, unfortunately, you know, up until I was arrested, and then I started doing therapy and everything else.
Okay,
you know, so I did.
So you talk about being arrested, and what was your experience in the juvenile justice like? What did you learn from that?
Not to do it again, that's for sure. The topic, the very first thing is, you know, stay out of trouble.
Right.
Really, though, what I learned the most was this life, you have choices to make. The choices you make can impact not just you, but, okay, so one of the biggest things that I learned going through the justice system, that it wasn't just me going through the justice system as a teenager. My parents went through everything I went through. They did more so than me because they had to take the time off of work. They had to pay for my court fines. I couldn't pay for it. I was 15, 16 years old. You know, I was working a part-time job at a restaurant. And I helped my dad, and I worked for him for free, basically, doing lawn care, his lawn care business. I'm not sure if you remember that, but he had a lawn care business, and I used to run that for free for him. And then I would work at a restaurant at nighttime. So when I got out of school, if I wasn't going to the restaurant to work, I would work for my dad. But going through the system, especially when I was arrested and going to court, and then whenever they took me to jail the first time, I remember getting my fingerprints done in the courtroom and looking over and seeing my parents' faces. And it was heart-wrenching whenever I seen their faces in the courtroom, you know, and I was just like, man, I was already on house arrest for 9 months prior to my, you know, actual conviction date. So I was on house arrest for 9 months. I already went to the detention center from being arrested for, you know, the warrant for my arrest. You know, got arrested. I got out. My lawyer got me out of the detention center, and then they placed me on house arrest, till I got sentenced for everything. And when I got out the first time, my lawyer, he came, got me out. When I went into the courtroom, I had shackles from my waist. I had chains around my waist, down to my ankles, up to my wrists. I mean, they were I remember just being so uncomfortable to where the back of the ankle bracelets were rubbing my ankles raw as I could barely even walk in them. And, I walked into the courtroom, after I was arrested the first time. And, as I was going into court for my hearing and my lawyer got me out of jail, walking in there like that in front of my parents, I just looked over, I could just see the pain in their faces. And I was like, man, I feel for them more for myself almost, seeing their faces. It was just, I can't even put it into words of how they looked at me, you know what I mean? And just how they looked, I just couldn't believe it. And so when I get out, my mom drove up to Bartow, because at the time it was Bartow, which I'm not sure. Is that place still open? The detention center in Bartow?
Center, no.
I don't think it is either. I heard that they closed down. I'm not sure. But that's where they placed us then, was in Polk County. So my mom drove up there and got me out of Polk County with my lawyer, of course. And then I was just thinking, I was like, man, my dad's going to be so mad. Like my mom's easy. My dad was always the hard one. He was like, he was the hard one in the family. And I got home and I talked to him, and it wasn't like that. He was mad. It was disappointed. The difference between someone being mad and just disappointed. He was disappointed, and I seen that in his face. And when I seen that in my dad's face, I was like, I've never seen that side of him before up until that point. Mm-hmm. He never really showed emotion towards me and my brother in that kind of way. So when I seen that, I was like, man, I just disappointed my dad and my mom. And it was the disappointment. I knew from then on, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm never going to disappoint my parents again. I'm going to better myself no matter what. I'm going to climb the ladder. If I fall, I'm going to get myself back up. I'm not going to let them, because in my eyes, I thought they looked at me and they're like, we failed as parents.
Right.
You guys didn't fail as parents. This is not your fault. This is on me. But they felt that way. They never said that to me. I could just see it. And it was unspoken words of just like, we failed. No, you guys, you did fail. It was on this. It's me. I did this, not you. And, so it was a big life-changing moment after that. And then, of course, the 9 months house arrest, the court dates, the postponements of court dates. Every time I went to court, it was like, okay, is this going to be it? Is it not going to be it? They were debating on trying us as adults or keeping us as juveniles. We didn't know what was going on. My lawyer didn't know what was going on. It was a nightmare for the longest time. And then on my sentencing date, finally, they were like, we found a statue. You have to go back to detention center for 21 days. Mm-hmm. And I was just, not that place again. Not that place. I mean, I'm not sure if you've ever been to that place, but when I say juvenile detention center, people think of it as daddy daycare or something. And let me tell you something. My brother worked as a correctional officer in a prison, and he told me what it was like there.
Right.
The detention center, at least the one that I was at in Polk County, was, of course, everything has razor wire, but it wasn't just regular. I mean, this curled over your head like a halo for your rec time and stuff, You went to school, but it wasn't really school. They never transfer your credits or anything. I mean, it was a mess going through all that in itself. And the stuff it was the experience in jail was enough for me to as a teenager, it just was, I wouldn't have wished that on my worst enemy. And I still wouldn't. wish that on anyone. I learned from it, from talking to the guards in there and the other kids that were in there with me, because we're kids. I've seen young kids, really young kids. They were like 8 years old in there. I'm like, what could they have possibly done to be in this place? I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. And the first thing they told me when I walked in there the very first time was, because I just hit my growth spurt. I was like a late bloomer kind of. I just hit my growth spurt. I was like 6'1", 205 pounds. And they told me, they said, hey, you better not cause us any problems. I remember this word for word. They said, you better not cause us any problems, because one of us might not be able to take you, but 3 of us can, and we will. I'm like, where am I right now? Like, this is like, I'm not here to cause problems. I just want out. Like, now, I didn't know how long I was going to be there for the first time. I didn't know anything until I seen a lawyer and went to court, of course. And then, of course, after all that was said and done, then I met you, and you were my probation officer. And I looked at some paperwork. I think I had 260 hours of community service to do. 260 hours between high school and working. That was every day after school. I went to the public library and I got 2 hours in. Then I would go on the weekends to New Hope, and I did my community service there for 5 hours every Saturday. I don't even remember how long it took me to complete all those hours. I know you hired me to do so many a month. I don't remember what they were, but I always did more than the requirement, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. But 260 hours of community service for a 16-year-old is tough. You miss out on a lot of stuff, and then being on house arrest, then you have the curfew. I think you started me off at an 8 o'clock curfew. And you're missing out on everything, your birthdays with your friends, just school, after school functions. Everything was just nuts when you're on probation. And you guided me through that very well. I might say you definitely had a big impact on keeping me straight and going the right path and keeping me on track. I remember every time, I think it was every Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, that you would come to the school, mm-hmm. and I'd hear my name. I was sitting in the English class. It was always when I was in English class. It was the same time every Wednesday. They'd call me in there, and then everyone in the school already knew. Everybody in that class at least knew, like, what I was going for. Like, oh, hey, go see your probation officer, Kurt, Like, I'm going, And you check on me, ask me how I was doing, my grades, this and that. I think you made me keep a 2.0. If I'm not mistaken. That was a stipulation, if I'm not mistaken. Right. But I had a hard time doing that, because when I went to jail, it was nothing switched over. So I had 3 months, at least 3 months worth of schoolwork, that I was just straight zeros for my sophomore year. It was just straight zeros. So I had stacked. It was a thick stack of papers. I'm like, how am I going to finish all this? I slowly was chipping at the block all the way up until my senior year. I was even getting letters in the mail my senior year. I had to go to summer school before my junior year. I had to go to summer school to pass my FCAT class. I had to go to summer school for that because I wanted to graduate. At the time, it was FCAT. That's the standardized state test for the young folks that are going to listen to this. I'm sure it's called something different today. But had to go to summer school for that. And then my senior year, I had to do an early morning weightlifting class, and I had to do 2 co-op classes in order to get enough credits just to graduate high school. And I was getting letters in the mail. At the time, we graduated in May. And in January, they were sending letters to my parents' house saying, hey, he's not going to make it. He's not going to graduate this year. And my dad even told me this, Kurt, just drop out and get your GED. I said, no. No, I'm not dropping out. And I said, I don't care what these letters say. I'm going to graduate. I'm good. And you encouraged me to do that. I remember, I think I told you about it. I was like, look, they're sending me these letters. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying really hard. And I rose above it. And I got through it, and I ended up graduating, getting my high school diploma. I didn't walk with my class because I developed pretty severe anxiety. So you were there for my graduation. I'm not sure if you remember. And I sat in the very back. My mom still made me go. She didn't understand what was going on. My mom didn't understand what anxiety was, at least for me at the time. And I sat there in the very back, and I think you were sitting in the back too, if I'm not mistaken. You were sitting very close to me, and you're like, why aren't you walking with your class? And I was like, look, I'm stressing out really bad. I don't feel good. I just told you I didn't feel good, and that was because I just had really bad anxiety. But I graduated, and I got my high school diploma for, even though I was getting sent these letters, and my dad was telling me to drop out. I was like, no, Dad, it's going to be harder for me than most people when I get out of high school, just because of what I went through. Granted, it was juvenile record, so it doesn't really show up on everything, but it does count as far as military, police. If I want to be a cop, can't be a cop. If I want to go to the military, not unless they were given waivers or something of that nature. I tried for 5 years to get into the Coast Guard, and I couldn't even get them to call me back. And my dad finally drove me over there, and they looked at all of my paperwork from DJJ and everything. I showed them everything I had, the charges and everything, and they were like, look, man, we had guys come in here that were arrested for getting in a fight with their teacher in the 5th grade that we turned down. And it said, if you get turned down, you're going to have to put on your job application for the rest of your life that you were denied military service. And I was like, well, do I want to take that chance? No, I don't want to take that chance. So I didn't do it. So I decided to go on a different path. My dad's like, hey, check out this. And he showed me this video on the internet. It was Jay Leno promoting this school, this welding school. He's like, you want to do that? I said, I already do it now anyway. So yeah, sure, why not? I'll go to welding school. So I went to welding school. I was a year long. I got a master welding degree out of it. They taught me how to pipe weld, structural weld, taught me how to read blueprints, everything. That's what led me on to my career of being a welder fabricator now. But if it wasn't, I think everything happens for a reason. My brother was in the military for 9 years. He suffers from PTSD now. There's a lot of things that people who were in the military at that time that they're dealing with now that, I'm thankful that I didn't have to go through that and deal with that kind of stuff. I have my own problems I have to deal with, but theirs are a little bit more severe. So everything happens for a reason. I am where I'm supposed to be, and I'm thankful for it. I wouldn't change it. If anything, it's shaped me into a better person. The system helped me and definitely opened my eyes. And to speak of moving forward, you have to own who you are, what you've done, what's in the past is in the past. You have to own it, and you have to move on from it. Don't, because I was trying to hide. I wouldn't talk about it. I never would talk about any of this to anyone. And when I did, I started realizing, I was like, this isn't going to change anything for me. I'm still going to be successful. I'm still, I'm going to rise above all this, and I'm going to try hard. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work every day, and I'm going to be successful. And that's all there is to it. I'm not going to give up no matter what. If I get turned down for a job, I'll go get another one.
And that is so important because, and I'm listening to you, so you had goals, other goals prior to getting into the system. And even though you weren't able to attain those goals because of the negative effects of being involved in the juvenile justice system, you just didn't give up. You tried other avenue. And that's the most important thing, is to not give up, try other avenue, and most importantly, be determined and focused. You have to have that willpower, which you demonstrated that you had.
Absolutely. That's one thing, is the system can and will break you down. It'll break you down and rip you to pieces if you let it.
If you let it.
You have to. If you let it beat you, then it's hard. But you can't give up no matter what. It doesn't matter what you got charged, because what I got charged for was pretty serious. I got felony charges as a juvenile. I'm not scared to admit it. I'll say it. And those are some things that can put people in the dumps. I don't know how many cases that you have had that have been worse or less than mine, but I didn't reading the charges off. It didn't. It's not gonna stop me. It's not gonna stop me from what I want to do. It's not gonna stop me from who I've become. It has changed me for the better of who I am. That's for sure. Because who knows if I didn't get arrested for that didn't happen. I did take a lot of my aggression out on football, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe I would really hurt somebody one day from fighting or something. I don't know. Because even when I played football, I'd get nasty with the other guys, and and just a lot of fighting. So who knows? And I got arrested and it all stopped. I stopped it all. Even though whenever I went to jail, there was a few incidences where I almost really had no choice, because at the time I was in guys with Polk County, a lot of street gangs, a lot of younger guys that were in there were, they were on the beginning, their rise up of being bad, I guess. Maybe they're not anymore. I don't know. But you just got to overcome it. You got to own it. You got to own it, take responsibility for it. You got to overcome it. Don't let it slow you down or stop you. Don't think your life is over just because, and especially as a juvenile, it's not impossible to get out of the system or beat the system, I guess you would say. You can't let it beat you. That's for sure. A probation officer such as yourself, I heard some bad stories about probation officers whenever I was in jail and stuff like that. You were nothing like what they described. I don't know any other probation officer besides you, so I can't say anything about it. But the horror stories that I was hearing, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad I have this woman as my probation officer supervisor, because it was you put me where I need to go, and it was a blessing, and you kept on me. You wasn't easy on me by no means. I mean, it wasn't like you was easy on me. You definitely kept me in check. It was like, hey boy, don't you lie to me now.
I must say that I love to hear these successful stories, because I don't measure myself as being a productive or effective probation officer. It's just by saying, complete your stuff. I want to challenge my probationers to let their juvenile justice involvement be their final involvement with the law, with the legal system.
Yes, with law.
Right. And so it happened that you are one of such who allowed this to be a learning experience, and now to become a hardworking, law-abiding citizen. And I am very proud of you for that.
I appreciate that. It wasn't like it was easy. You have to work for it. Right. You have to work for it. If you don't want to be in the system again, you're not going to be in the system again, but you got to work at it. Mentally, physically, you have to work at it. If you don't work at it and you just try to just ease by it and I just want to get out of the system.
Right.
Of course you do. Who wants to be in it? No one wants to be in it. But you've got to.
And before we wrap up, we're getting to the to wrapping up. But before we wrap up, you're sitting in an audience of male. I'm just gonna say male juvenile delinquents, or those who are at risk of getting into the juvenile justice system. What advice would you give to them?
if they're already in the system or about to be in the system?
Both of them, they're already in the system, the juvenile justice system, or at risk of becoming involved in the system.
Or at risk. Okay. Advice: complete everything as fast as possible. You want to complete everything as fast as possible. Don't lie about anything to your probation officer. Tell the truth no matter what. Even if it gets you in more trouble, you tell. She's going to find out. She's going to know.
Yeah.
If you're out past curfew and you talk to a police officer, she will know. She will find out. Being on probation, do what you're told. Follow the rules. Do what you're told. Do better. Do better. Do better than. Don't do just the minimum. Call your probation officer instead of her having to call you. You call her. I did. I called you. I called you all the time.
I remember I didn't have to see you if I'm at the school. Like, don't come to the school and don't see me, Miss Clark. Make sure I see you every time you come. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I made it a point. I want to do better. And for anybody that's in the system now, if Ms. Clark is your officer, treat her with respect. She'll treat you with respect. I've never gotten anything. You were nice. You were good to me. I was good to you too. I don't know how the system is today, but back then it was, you gotta be respectful. Just be respectful in general to everyone, not just a probation officer because you have to or you want to. And people in general. And if you're at risk of being in the system, there's an easy way to tell if you are or if you're not. One, choose who you hang out with. You're at the age of what's bad and what's not bad. You can see the people that are doing certain things that you don't want to be a part of. Just because they're my friends. They're not really your friends. They're not really your friends if they're going to try to put you in that kind of situation. They're not really your friends. I don't care what you say. They're really not. If they're going down that path, you need to go away from that path. Well, I'm going to be alone. Well, make new friends. Or be alone. Whatever it takes, don't put yourself in that position. Because I did. I put myself in that position. I had my friends that were my friends, but at the time they were both. Whenever I got in trouble and got involved with the people I was involved with, my best friend went to Texas. A girl that I was dating, she went to Pennsylvania, so I was stuck alone. So I started hanging out. I was lonely, so I started hanging out with people I didn't know necessarily. And I thought these guys were my friends. They weren't. They weren't my friends. So you need to definitely be aware of who you're hanging out with, and you know better. You already know better if you feel like you could get in trouble, a certain crowd, that's where it starts, is your peers. Know who you are inside and know the people you're hanging around. That's one of the biggest things is the people you're around, your surroundings, who you surround yourself around. If things aren't so good, I understand people have a rough life and maybe being at home isn't the best answer because, whatever your family situation is, I don't know. But if you have to be outside and, you're trying to avoid your home for whatever reason, just be careful and choose who you hang out with wisely. And if you see them doing stuff that says, hey, that's illegal, hang out somewhere else. Don't be around those people. And don't let them think that they're going to be your friends because they're not your friends, and you're going to be in the system with them, and they're not going to care, And if you're not that type of person, which I wasn't that type of person, what I got charged with and the people I was with at the time, I wasn't that kind of person. They weren't, I don't know, but I knew better whenever I hung out with them that night that I shouldn't have been where I was. I knew then that I should have went home, and I did. I stayed. I chose to hang around when I shouldn't have. So as far as being in the system goes, do what you're told, pay your fines, get your community service done. Don't slack on doing your community service. Well, I have this much time. I'll say you have 5 years probation, like I did. 206 hours of community service. I knocked them out well in a year or less, probably. I'm not quite sure. But I know I didn't slack on anything, paying the restitution, whatever it is you have to do, get it done and get it done quick. And that also shows, Miss Clark, that you're trying.
Right.
You know, when you're sitting there, you're knocking stuff out. You're knocking out the paperwork. You're paying your court fees. You're paying your restitution. You're turning in community hours. Every time she sees you, you should be giving her something that says you're trying. You know, every time. She's going to respect you for that. And, you know, you're going to respect yourself for that at the end of the day, too. It's an accomplishment. It's one step closer to being a better person and moving on with your life and conquering, you know, and overcoming the juvenile system and being a better person in general.
So I want to say thank you very much for joining and sharing your story. It is such a successful story for me to hear as your probation officer. And if ever again, maybe we can do this another time and keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing exactly what you're doing and just keep self-improving. And thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. I push through every day. I won't stop. I appreciate it.
Okay.